The issue with Biden is not about shunning or not shunning Israel, because we've voted for so many other presidents who are pro-Israel. The issue with Biden is that he has blood on his hands. You know, because when it comes theologically, Kiislamu, we never convict people for crimes that they've never committed or we think they'll commit. With Biden, he has blood on his hands, and that was the most difficult part.
Biden himself kept reiterating he's not going to step down. I'm not going to step down. He kept saying that. He said, you know, I might talk a little slow. You know, I might not be as young as I used to, but I definitely have a handle on these things. And he was very confident. Now, the thing is, you can't just will your way into a presidency, although some may try. You have to have the funding. You have to have the support of the party. You have to have key individuals backing you up. And that's what started really changing.
Tonight, we are privileged to host U.S. politics and culture contributor Miss ANNETTE KARANJA. Now, ANNETTE is a second-generation Kenyan raised in Baltimore, Maryland. She's a political activist who focuses on social justice, economic, and political rights for immigrants. Now, last year, ANNETTE was appointed by Baltimore County Mayor and now candidate for U.S. Congress Johnny O to the New American Task Force. She's also a recipient. She also received a public service award from her local chapter of the Democratic Party in Baltimore County. Now, ANNETTE has a passion in political mobilization and assisting Kenyans access government services. She's here today to talk about the changing dynamic of the U.S. presidential race and how it may impact U.S.-Kenyan relations. With the stepping aside of Joe Biden and the rise of VP Kamala Harris to the top of the Democratic ticket, ANNETTE will highlight the effect of Kamala's surprise candidacy on the upcoming November presidential elections. ANNETTE, welcome back to the OneMicShow. And how are you doing today?
I'm doing okay.
All right, all right. Yes, it's great. Now, you've been here so many times. I've even lost count. You were here back in May during primary season when Angela Alsobrooks was vying for the Democratic Party ticket for the Maryland U.S. Senate seat. What have you been up to since then, ANNETTE?
There has been so much.
Okay.
First, I want to say that Senate race was a nail biter. That was we were on a ride for that one, but that race continues because we still have November, and Larry Hogan is the Republican running against Angela Alsobrooks, and so that's going to be a tough one to contend. And so since then, there has been some mobilizing, just trying to figure out and outline what it is that we want as a party to do moving forward for this election. I'm a very local person. All politics are local. You got to start there. There's been some movements within my district to do some redistricting and to get some new voters, which is really significant now with the shift that has happened, because we know that new voters tend to impact the numbers for Democrats and independents more significantly than it does for Republicans. And so we've gotten some very strong numbers for new voters since Biden decided not to run for re-election. And so that has mobilized so many people. This past week, there have been lots of calls going on. There were 44,000 Black women on a call that happened that same night. It was a scramble to get on that call. You know, we got to capacity so quickly multiple times until all 44,000 of us were able to be on that call. I was proud to be on that call. And I'm very proud of that call because it was grassroots. There was no advertising. You knew somebody. You were part of the community. And that really is a good way to lead for, you know, moving forward. And then other groups did the same. Now, that doesn't mean that things have been solidified as far as what the specifics that we want to talk about. Like, we want to hear what Kamala is going to say about the issues that are pressing citizens today, of course. But when you have a shift like that, you wanna make sure that you get on board from the beginning, just so that you can be part of the group that is progressing the country forward.
Okay, very interesting, very interesting. And I also want to welcome the rest of the panel. We're going to get to Mika shortly, who's on Zoom. I'm going to get started right here in the studio with DJ Omosh Fire, who's been rogaing us. Omosh, how has your week been? Karibu sana.
Asante sana. Welcome to the show, Annette. Good to see you. I'm seeing, maybe you should have come with a t-shirt that says I survived Joe Biden. Uh, the week has been interesting. I would venture to say that the whole month, or should I say, going back a month, 4 weeks, there's so much that has happened politically that affects us here and affects us at home, that at a certain point it's like it's become part and parcel of your day to day, so you even forget that there's and then somewhere around there Olympic snacking, so you're like, okay, Olympics, Kenya news, politics, sijui tunapangwa, sijui a shot in the ear, a ear that was not shot. It's all sorts of different things, and then you're like, oh, I need to pay mortgage, dang, and I have to work. So you have to just, at a certain point, this is that point where Joanna Pott says your mental health, blah 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 blah, and then you're given the spiel. This is that part because there's so much that is going on, and whatever is going to happen here domestically is also going to affect us in Kenya in different ways. Meaning it affects us with policies. Mm-hmm. It also affects us with how we ourselves as immigrants in this country are living. Because 45, when he had a first opportunity, the first order of business was immigrants and how I can screw them.
Yes, and Muslims, don't forget us. It was both immigrants and Muslims. He had a special category of Muslims.
I guess he started with Muslims, and then it was like, oh, you're a Muslim who's an immigrant.
Then he expanded
it. Yes. And so, it's one of those things that you sit down and you're like, okay, man, you really, really have to look at this thing, big picture. And it's been a heck of a week. And then Uncle Joe alicheza kama yeye.
Okay, asante sana Mosh Fire. We're going to come to Mika, who's on Zoom. But before we go to Mika, I think we need to come to Uno Mike, who's in studio. Uno Mike, how has your week been? How have you been keeping up mentally with all these dynamic shifts, both in Kenya and in the US?
Oh, and don't forget you have Relas in sorry.
I have Relas where?
In Baltimore.
Okay, that's fine. Anyway, it was quite interesting. So, I was one of those people who was really, really conflicted. I really did not want Papa Joe to step down because I knew that was the best chance. The best shot.
For Democrats.
Remember, because in 2020, everyone else stood. Everyone that wanted to vie.
Yes.
Now akashindwa. Mm-hmm. He emerged as the winner.
Yes.
Now, talking to a few guys, the intention was to run for 1 year. For one term.
Yeah.
But then I think somewhere something happened, whatever. In the back, probably in the back somewhere, nyuma ya tent, Nasi Maldives, we'll probably find out what his thinking was for him to want to run again. We're not really sure. There was a lot of hype around Gavin Awesome. Him, because I think that's
who is Gavin Awesome?
Gavin Awesome is the California governor.
Oh, okay. You mean Governor Newsom?
That one.
Okay, I
didn't know him Awesome. I call him
Gavin Awesome.
Gavin Awesome.
Yeah,
you like that, don't you? So anyway, that I thought, but then I learned that you cannot get somebody from the same state. But I think the assumption was if he's going to run, then Kamala has to drop. Anyway, there was a lot of hoopla going on. There was a lot of news in terms of that. You know what, Kamala? People want to if Kamala is dropped, that there goes the In other words, Orange Orangutan is going to come back. But it looks like what? It's a good thing, man. It's a good thing.
Okay.
See, homeboy.
You started feeling it?
No. Yeah. I felt it because
okay.
I was concerned because I know it's politics. Mm-hmm. Feelings is one thing.
Yeah.
Reality and politics and it being a contact sport, there are very many pieces that have to be put together.
Have to align.
They have to align.
Yeah.
That's just facts. But it looks like the way guys are gunnering up, they're gathering, they're rallying. They're not even falling in love. They're not only falling in love, they are falling in line. Like there is thugly clans that they do. Them, it doesn't matter what he said. So now Homeboy has pulled out of a debate. And then on top of that, so I'm dealing with that. And then on this side, I'm thinking, Mandamano, kaende, 2020. And then Baba just yanks the damn rag
He does
and
his
does.
thing. He does his thing.
Alicheza kama yeye.
Okay.
He does his thing, which has just in chess. See, checkmate is just check.
Yeah.
Ni check too.
Only check.
Ni check.
Okay.
2027.
However, there's still some moves
There
that
are
can be.
there are still moves that can be made right
Okay.
now.
And
That
tho-
one I believe.
And
Aye.
and those moves can be dirty.
Okay.
Ni sawa too.
Jesus
sawa.
moves can
Lakini
be
they are
dirty.
moves.
We're going to get to that conversation later on.
Yes.
Let me welcome Mika. Mika Och, how has your week been? How have you been dealing with all these shifting dynamics, both in the US and in Kenya? Mika, twende kazi.
Na ametuliza kwanza.
Mika
Amepoa.
alihama.
Alihama. Okay.
Alihama.
Nilihama nikaenda.
Dynamic shift.
Huyo ni
Kenya,
Omosh.
achana na Omosh. Dynamic shift. Kenya, US. How have you been dealing with it, Mika, before we get back to Annette in studio?
Mika kona jet lag.
Well, for the Kenyans, niko na jet lag ya kwenda wapi? Boss, mimi sijaenda kupoa bahasha Atlanta. Relax.
Wow. The violence.
Yaani umeona vile Mika
Aya,
amekuja.
Mika, twende.
gloves
Mika,
off.
twende.
For the Kenyan one, I'd already accepted it last week. There was nowhere that the moment that Baba had given his statement last week about what he was going to say, I didn't expect any different. I knew that he was going to do that. I knew that the rumors don't just come from nowhere. So for Kenya, I was expecting it. I knew that Baba had already done what he was going to do, and there was no coming back from that. Now for the American one, I started kind of accepting it, especially when Papa Joe said that he was sick with COVID. I started seeing it. But then also the thing that I'm like one Mike, I wasn't there for him stepping down, because the call for stepping down was coming from Republicans more than him, right? And Republicans knew that the only reason that Republicans wanted Joe Biden to step down is that they believe that the Democratic Republic is gonna the Democratic Party is gonna start scrambling and try to start looking for who's going to be the best representative, and while they're still fighting within themselves to come up with somebody who's going to be their nominee, Trump will have made headway, will have a lot of people to attack, and they would have gone. Another thing is that they did not expect that the vice president is going to get a lot of endorsements the way they did, because if you look at how their policies are based on what they're running on, their policies are anti-immigration, anti-Muslim, but majority of them is anti-women, right? We can see the moves they've made in the Supreme Court with the people who they put there based on women health and women representation. And basically, the campaigns are run by hate. So for Biden, it was on his health, on how he is, and trying to put malice and lies about his inclusivity and everything else that was there. So it was when I saw that he had stepped down and he endorsed Kamala, he didn't even hesitate. Then I was like, okay, let's see. But then within 2 hours, a lot of the Democratic Party had endorsed Kamala Harris, and I was like, okay. By the end of the night, we saw how many people moved to her side. We saw how much money was raised, and it was a shocker even for the Republicans. They were not ready for that. It left them without anything to say. And what do you go usually? Even a jilted lover, akiachwa kitu anaendaga ni kusema nini? Ule alikuwaga tu puro so they tried to go after her in her time, like, okay, she's black, she's young, she likes dancing, she likes doing stuff. They started calling her, they started saying how she used other means on climbing a political ladder, trying to malign, but it was not going to happen, and it's not happening right now. So actually, for me, I think that step down was a very good thing that happened, and I want to thank the president for not only stepping down, nominating her, and ensuring while he's stepping down, negotiating a strong hand for her to be able to climb for a strong hand in terms of conditions of him dropping out and giving a platform whereby she can catapult her candidacy. And
Okay.
man, you see the euphoria. Like the euphoria is nearly like that of Obama, but I think it's actually more.
Okay, aya Mika, sawa sawa, asante sana. So clearly there's excitement even within the Kilimanjaro family here with Kamala Harris running. So for me it's
same
been
question
interesting.
to you, sir.
Yeah, so for me it's been interesting. So same question about Kenya or on
Both,
this? Yeah.
because you asked
Okay.
us all the
All
same
right.
thing.
Okay, all right.
No, hold on. So Ali, how was your week? How are you doing? What do you think about US?
How is your mental state
mental
of
state, all that
declaration?
schmickety-schmack,
And now that you had a protest and you are leading it,
Relax.
Sorry.
Am I not
Ali
the one
guy.
who's asking the questions?
Oh.
Relax. You
Okay.
can also be asked the question.
All right.
Yeah, you can't
yeah.
moderate without Nini tolerance.
Yeah, so there were so many things happening. We of course had a very successful protest from the IMF last week. We had quite a number of
Yes,
Kenyans.
yes.
Over 100 Kenyans showed up. People drove all the way from Pennsylvania
Correct.
just to come for this protest. And we're in the process of where we're trying to figure out, where are we gonna move the needle from here with what's happening in Kenya in a way that we have an advantage based on where we are located here in Washington, D.C. A lot of these international organizations like the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, a lot of human rights organizations. So we're trying to figure out how we can push the needle to also try and dent President Ruto's image abroad, which he's very carefully crafted. You remember that he came for a state visit a couple of months ago. So, and we were covered a lot by Kenyan media, and then some random DC media house showed up, for the protest. We didn't even know who they were, but they heard about the protest. They came and covered it. So there was that, and then of course there was the sadness.
And we had Haitians too.
And we had Haitians too.
Yeah.
Yes, we had Haitians. We had some Ethiopians. We had
Yes.
Americans who came there.
Yeah.
There were people from multiple places. Asante sana Omosh for coming through. Of course, Mika had already excused himself. Mike was missing in action, so Washeke start doing that calculation of how much fine he's supposed to be paying and where the payment will be going. So that's what was happening. And of course, in Kenya, it was very sad what happened. We've seen now we have another handshake government, or what they're calling a government of national unity, whereby it seems like the Gen Z revolution has kind of been hijacked by the Azimio coalition. Even the Azimio coalition no longer exists, but Raila Odinga is trying to play.
It exists on paper.
It exists on paper, and Raila Odinga is trying to play both sides. He's trying to eat his cake and have it by saying, no, we are in there, no, we are not in there, they're there on the individual capacity. So there was that part. Then there was, of course, the part where President Biden stepped down. My oh my, this was such a big relief for our Muslim community. And I say this because we were in that position where, of course, we cannot vote for him based on what has happened in Gaza, but then we are staring at a Donald Trump presidency. So there was actually no, I mean, it would be easier to say that we were conflicted, but there was no conflict. 39,000 people, it was just very difficult to go back and sell Biden, after presiding over genocide with 39,000 people lost. It was, like now on a theological aspect, because when you're convincing, the community in a mosque or in a place of worship, you have to give reasoning why you're doing it. And with 39,000 people in a very short span of time, it was very difficult to do it. So that's a fight that even those of us who are deep in the Democratic Party, we just decided that we are going to let it go. It is what it is, and we'll wait to find out what happens. But now, God had a plan for us. God took away Biden. So that heavy load is lifted off our shoulder. And I've been, trying to keep my ear down on what people across the community are saying. And the general talk from the limited scope that I have is that she's a new candidate. Let's hear what she's going to say about Gaza. I mean, and of course, she already started talking. We know that Netanyahu was in D.C. earlier this week.
The butcher of Gaza.
Yeah, so there's already a few comments coming in, but we really want to get a robust response from her on what her position is on the Palestinian issue. And I think this will be a big determining factor. But I'm seeing good signs that people are saying, let's give her a chance. Let's hear what she has to say. If she comes back with that ironclad story of Israel, then again, we are not going to vote for her. But so far, I think things are looking okay.
But let me ask you.
Sure.
Let me ask you.
Go ahead.
As a community,
Yes.
Are you honestly expecting a U.S. president to say that they're going to shun Israel?
They're going to do what?
Shun Israel completely and like that.
No. The issue with Biden is not about shunning or not shunning Israel, because we've voted for so many other presidents who are pro-Israel. The issue with Biden is that he has blood on his hands. You know, because when it comes theologically, Kiislamu, we never convict people for crimes that they've never committed or we think they'll commit. With Biden, he has blood on his hands, and that was the most difficult part. I know normal logic will say, oh, you know, but Trump could have done worse. But the problem is we have someone with blood in his hands. And I think that's the most difficult part for people who are outside the community. Those of us inside, we understand. This is someone who has blood on his hands. We are not voting for him. That's that. So now the good thing, he's out of the way. We have Kamala Harris. And Kamala Harris, I mean, of course, she's not, she's the vice president, but we just want to hear her position on the issue of Gaza, because this is so salient to the community. It is so sensitive, and I hope she has advisors who will tell her the right things to say, because Michigan, I was so worried about Michigan. Michigan is a very critical state. If Kamala is to win, I think Michigan is one of those states that she must win. You know, that blue wall of Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, very, very important, because the other battleground states are kind of leaning Republican right now. We're talking of Georgia, we're talking of Nevada, we're talking of Arizona, and we're talking of North Carolina. They're kind of leaning Republican. I mean, of course, we've not seen
Virginia
new polls.
play into that a little bit?
Virginia is still on the Democratic side. I would say it's still leaning Democrat. You know, Northern Virginia, you know, like Richmond going north, the population is too big to tilt Virginia, but it's still a state to watch. But anyway, let's come back to the studio. But before that, a couple of comments have been coming in here. Before I forget, Washeke insists she's in Lisbon, Portugal. Washeke will only believe if you show us pictures. Luis Muya, karibu sana. I can see Stephen JJ is in the building. And Evans Marube anasema leo mnachokora show. Washeke pia anasema violence on the show. And then I can see Ashley Maingi, Maura Muroki, Adhiambo Odak, Lona Kamau, Sleo Dwar, karibuni sana ndani ya OneMicShow. Now Washeke says the coalescing around Kamala has been amazing. People putting their money where their mouth is. And then Evan says Kamala is young, woman, likable, and a seasoned attorney. Buona America is built with immigrants. Blacks, women, and Indians are on board. Harris Atabeba, America of 2024 and the America of the 70s. So asante sana. And before we go back to Annette, I want to say, you know, I was also shocked at the speed and precision at which Biden stepped down, immediately endorsed Kamala, and all these other establishment Democrats started endorsing. It happened with so much speed and precision, you know, because I was worried. What happens after Biden steps down? What if there are people here who are going to say, no, we don't want Kamala, we want this other candidate, we want this other candidate? I was a bit worried about that. But I started seeing on Twitter, and it was on a Sunday. They did it so precisely. They did it on a slow news day to make sure that that's going to be the only item on the news. By the time dissenters are waking up on Monday morning, everybody's in line, and it's too late to say that, oh, I want what did you call him? Gavin who?
Gavin Awesome.
Yeah. So by the time Gavin Awesome were waking up, everybody had been in line. But now, Annette, prior to President Biden stepping down, the party establishment had been insisting that he will not step aside. That was a talk, you know, before he announced that he's stepping down, even just a couple of days before. Now, what is what is it that forced a change in tact in a way that was so swift and decisive? Or maybe was it secretly known within the party establishment maybe weeks ago, months ago, that they're going to ask him to step down?
I don't think it was a secret. There has been talks, you know, especially after the debate. That is when a lot of the doubt conversations came up. Even as the debate was going on, he needs to step down. This is coming from people within the party who have influence. And so that was not necessarily a secret. Now, Biden himself kept reiterating, he's not going to step down. I'm not going to step down. He kept saying that. He said, you know, I might talk a little slow. You know, I might not be as young as I used to, but I definitely have a handle on these things. and he was very confident. Now, the thing is, you can't just will your way into a presidency, although some may try. You have to have the funding, you have to have the support of the party, you have to have key individuals backing you up, and that's what started really changing and shifting things for Biden. So while for some of you, Sunday's announcement may have come as a shock, some of us knew that the announcement was coming. So we were told that we're going to hear from the White House at around this time on a Sunday.
Insiders.
I wouldn't say insiders, but insiders.
It's okay. Yeah.
So we knew that an announcement was coming, you know, and for press purposes, these are things that people are told, given a little bit of an advance notice so that you can prepare accordingly. I remember making the mental note, okay, on Sunday there's going to be an announcement. This is going to clear things up. I think I had my assumption of what the announcement was going to be. So when the announcement happened, I was on the phone with a friend of mine and scrolling and multitasking as women do. And I saw it and the conversation stopped. You know, I was like, oh my goodness, I knew an announcement was coming.
What was the assumption? What was your assumption?
So I was assuming that there was going to be a talk about the unification of the party, like, you know, we've come together and we need to rally right now and something along those lines. I didn't see him stepping down. In hindsight, I think that was a little bit, maybe a little bit naive in that looking at how often this was floated out there, because it's like a litmus test when you make the statement like maybe he should step down and then somebody else says it and somebody else says it, you know, like they were getting a feel for it. And then of course probably the most significant factor was the polling. There was a lot of polling going out, you know, Trump versus Biden, Kamala versus Biden, Kamala versus Joe, you know, other players versus Biden. And so that really was it. You don't poll for no reason. Polling actually takes a lot of energy, takes a lot of effort, a lot of coordination. So if you're going to be doing a poll, it has to be for a reason. And so that really was the indicator that I guess I chose not to see at the time. And now in hindsight, I'm like, okay, all the signs were there. Now we have it. I think the more surprising thing was just the emphatic endorsement of Kamala Harris, not because she's undeserving, but because I'm sure there are others who felt like this was an opportunity for them, you know. And so the moment he gave that endorsement, it put the Democratic Party on notice, and that party had to react.
Now, going back a little bit, you know, before going back to the other people who had maybe seen that as an opportunity, but going back a week before, where were you when you got the news on the assassination attempt of Trump, and what ran through your mind at that moment?
It was like
the
week
so
prior,
fast.
right? Like exactly like a week prior.
Yeah, it was exactly the same day. I think it was a Sunday.
Yeah, so a rally on a Sunday.
You talking about shrapnel that
I mean, that's the current.
I mean, that's the current theory.
But it was an assassination attempt. So this was the day that I chose to unplug, and I had come back from vacation out of town, and I was, you know, enjoying my vacation time, and I came back and I was like, wow, you know, I put my phone off for 24 hours and so much has happened. The world is ending. I mean, not quite, but it felt like I had been so far behind. I still suggest that you unplug it from time to time. Yes, news is going to happen very fast, and you might miss that if you're not a journalist.
Especially on Sundays at this rate.
You know, Sundays are no longer rest days.
No,
you know?
It's not a fun day anymore.
I mean, Wolf Blitzer was having brunch and enjoying his Sunday.
I was wondering, what is Wolf Blitzer doing on TV on a Sunday? I'm like,
he got the call. We need you immediately. You know, and
the car is right outside. That's what they told him. The car is right outside.
Happening now.
You know, I mean, he had just posted his, you know, the drink that's named after him at a brunch spot, enjoying his brunch, and then he was in the office. You know, and that's why they keep a change of clothes at work, because
behind the door. Yeah, he probably had like
in case something happens like that. You know, and so. That was, I mean, the response was quick. The talk was quick. The thing that I find interesting, and so to our listeners who you know, watch Fox News religiously, please tell me what was that they were doing on Sunday after the announcements? Because I would not say that is my best. That's their best journalism. I mean, they talked about Kamala. I think they had like a very long montage of her laughing, and saying that she laughs funny. It was not the best moment in journalism.
I think what happened there is that it caught them by a surprise, and for them, the expectation was that if Joe Biden stands down, like if Joe Biden pulls out, there's going to be a scramble for the ticket. And in that scramble for the ticket, they were going to look for a thing. So they and I believe they are not up to now prepared on facing that Harris candidacy.
The only reason why
at that point they had to scramble up. At that reason, I think they just had to scramble up and start to look for. You know, when you campaign, when you go against somebody, let's say if I have a problem with you and I don't know much about you, but I want to talk shit about you, and all that is leading me is hate, I'm going to look for the smallest thing that I can try to amplify and paint you badly, but it's not facts about you. So I don't have anything to talk about you. So the little thing that is right there, that is small, that I can readily, easily available get it. Because let's be honest, that Friday, a lot of bad things were said about the vice president, right? They called her a sorority girl. They said that she hoarded away up party politics, up her career and up party politics. They tried to bring up the issues of the people she incarcerated. And the good thing that I like about the internet these days is you can beat everything with facts. And I like the way the democratic bloggers and just people in the internet really corrected a lot of that propaganda right before it took root. We know that the conservatives invested a lot in Elon Musk in buying Twitter so that they can use it to push their propaganda. And you know, when the Gen Z thing was happening and Kenyans were doing something called Aura for Aura, right? You post a lie, we post something, and like we are going toe to toe. There is no behaving here. I'm glad that the Democrats did that, because it dispelled a lot of misinformation from spreading around. And you could see a news station like Fox News, which really, when most of the reporting is based on agenda based, when they haven't created that agenda, they were lost, completely lost. They even tried to make Biden's stepping down illegal, while they're the ones who are calling for it.
Okay, so Mika. Annette.
So the thing that I just don't the criticism that I have for that, though, is that Fox News did publicize when J.D. Vance said that he was not going to go and do a toe-to-toe with Vice
Kamala.
President Kamala Harris, because, and he said, Biden is going to step down and she might not be the VP pick anymore, you know, and it insinuated that she's actually running for president, and so it wouldn't be fair for a vice president nominee to then go against a president nominee. That's not how things work. So if Fox News is reporting that, I would think that that's an indication that you should have something, you know, planned just in case it happens, even if. But you know what? Maybe because the Republican Party has made it part of their party platform to use a lot of lies and do a lot of tricks, maybe they just said it to throw it out there and they didn't actually have something prepared for that. That is also a narrative that's possible. And we can see that historically as far as like them throwing out an idea that may not be based in fact.
Yes.
But this one, they were spot on.
They were spot on.
And so they should have been prepared.
Yeah, when you aim and you hope it doesn't hit, but it unfortunately hits.
Yeah.
Now, but before, you know, like before Biden stepped down, you know, like back again to the Trump assassination attempt, did you think at that point was it running in your mind that this is it? You know, like now there's no chance that Biden has of defeating Donald Trump.
Yes.
Because he just became they were already kind of like canonizing him like to almost a saint, and then now he's here. He survived an assassination attempt.
Here in America, imagery is so important. And whether I like Trump or not, that imagery of him, that picture that we saw of him with his fist up, with him bleeding, the blood on his face coming from his ear, you know, the people around him clearly in a chaotic, with the flag in the background in a chaotic scene. That is a powerful picture. Somebody is getting an award, okay, for taking that particular photo come award season. And because imagery is so important, at that point, what is the comparative photo that we have for the other side? And Biden doesn't really have that. You know, the last thing that we have in our memories for him was that debate, and that was not a very strong, honestly, it wasn't strong for either side, but the media really, really picked on Biden, specifically on the things that he messed up on.
But do you think the decision to have Biden step down, was it kind of made after the debate, or did this assassination attempt, you know, like kind of like finalize, like we really now need to get him out, or was this just happenstance?
I would say that those who were vying to make some sort of upward movement probably was thinking about this prior to the debate. I would say that the visceral of it came after the debate. The assassination attempt on former President Trump's life definitely solidified it, but the talks were there beforehand, and it was very clearly seen. Social media, the press was talking about it. You know, when the minority leader is making similar statements, that is quite concerning, because that's a huge leader in the party, and so that definitely started before this particular attempt.
Okay, and then before we go to Kamala. Now that President Biden no longer has the burden of worrying about being reelected, what are maybe 2 or 3 things, Annette, you might think he must do to secure his legacy as a great American president? Annette?
That's a big question.
Yeah.
I think let's start with what outgoing presidents always do. Like, the easier thing to talk about is, you know, there's an opportunity to do some pardons. This is a lot of times we see pardons around this time. We'll see, you know, the last month leading up to January, we'll see some executive orders, kind of our like last moment. What those last moment things would be for him, I'm not sure, only because he's had so much pushback on his initiatives. So when we're talking about erasing student loan debt, that was his big party thing that he wanted to do for the American people. That and the infrastructure bill, which has actually really, really benefited many of the states that their leadership had voted against it. And so it's kind of hard to answer that question, because he has had so much litigation on anything that he has tried to do for his legacy and for the American people. So I'm not sure. I think this would be a moment for like a wish list. Like, if you could get a letter to Biden, or if you could get in the room with him, you know, what would your wish list be for him? This is probably going to be that moment. So if he has any favors out there, this might be the moment that people are calling them in. I don't have a specific thing. What do you think you would want to see?
I know Alice.
You know Alice?
And it has to do with Benjamin, that ugly man, Netanyahu.
Benjamin Netanyahu.
That one.
Okay. Now, with you know, like this issue, and I know it's very difficult for people to understand why this issue is so important to us, with 39,000 lives involved. You know, like we are also here wondering, why is this issue not so important to other people? So I think, you know, like I mean, ceasefire at this point, you know, like Israel has been doing what they've been doing for such a long time. So even if he gets a ceasefire, he'll still be remembered for being, you know, like
Genocide Joe.
For being Genocide Joe. You know, like, unfortunately, in the community, that's how he's gonna be remembered, unless he can quickly reach a deal to have something like maybe like a 2-state solution before the next president is sworn in, which I think is a very difficult process given the short time that we have and how complicated these processes are. I think that's the only thing that maybe might redeem him a bit with the community. But I think, you know, like he'll forever go down as that guy who had the opportunity to stop a genocide of 39,000 people and wasn't able to do that. The unfortunate part is that he's done so many other great things.
Yes, he has a
before
really
that.
good track record.
He has a good track record on the economy,
Yes.
on so many other things. But with this one thing that is so salient, human life, over 39,000, and nothing was done about it. That right there, to me, will unfortunately be what Joe Biden, especially within the Muslim community. I mean, it's small in the U.S., but that's what he will be remembered for. And on top of that, I think this would be Kamala's chance to shine. Because I want to believe the worst of this Gaza conflict is over. With Netanyahu, you can't predict. But I want to believe the worst of it is over. So I think this will be her golden opportunity, just like the way Biden ended the war in Afghanistan, although it wasn't quite a smooth ending. These things usually never have very clean-cut, smooth endings. I think this would be Kamala's chance to be that person who was able to strike a solution that will maybe bring lasting peace in the region. Very difficult, but that's where that's where, unfortunately, where our mind is as people in the Muslim community, unfortunately.
I think this is a very challenging subject to discuss because of everything that you said and the experience and what the community is feeling is valid. When it comes to making statements about it now, we haven't even had a week of her being the presumed nominee. And let's remember that she's actually not the official nominee. That doesn't happen until the DNC officially makes her the person on the ticket. And so right now, the focus is going to be on continuing to garner support and getting the momentum until the DNC, which happens in August, until that actually happens and she becomes the official ticket.
Okay.
In the meantime, though, there is pressure. There are conversations happening. And with this visit that just happened, there have been conversations that she has had with those who are expecting with it. Well, first off, let's talk about the family members of the hostages who have discussed, with them what they would like to see, and basically want to see our citizens home, right, safely and as quickly as possible. And there is frustration amongst that group that this has taken so long because there have been opportunities to have deals, and we know who it is that is refusing to allow this to happen.
Benjamin Netanyahu.
Right? And since we know that, this is an opportunity for the United States to put pressure. However, historically, the U.S. has not really done any type of legal maneuvers that would put pressure on Israel historically in the way that you would maybe they could. Like, they have options. They have the option of
because of Zionists.
They have the option of not sending weapons or withholding money. And Biden did do that, did pause arms being sent at one point in time for a brief period of time. But those are the type of things that they have now. With the UK, I don't know if you guys heard, the UK is saying that they will arrest him if he were to come on UK soil.
Yeah, with the new government.
They're going to cooperate. And that is a big
deal.
Statement.
Yeah,
that's a big statement. It is not a small thing.
And this coming from the country that handed over Palestine to Israel.
Yes, and you know what happened is that there was a snap election.
That Balfour declaration.
Yeah, there was a snap election on July 4th where the Labour defeated the Conservatives, and most of the candidates, or rather, let me say, a lot of the candidates who won were pro-Palestine. So the public spoke, and right now, Netanyahu's belly is under fire. It's only America where he's getting these red carpets that we are seeing.
And so we're in new territory, too, because unlike the Republican Party, which has decided that they are completely and fully pro-Israel, and that there's no if, ands, or buts about that, they have that solidified and there's no room for conversation about it. The Democratic Party now, with a new person as the possible head of the state, is going to be trying to grapple with what does it look like to be pro-Israel and what does it look like to be pro-Palestine if we have a two-state solution. That's something that's going to be very tricky because within the Democratic party, there's not the same level of homogeny that the Republicans have. There are
Yes.
different sectors who have different opinions, and it's very possible that there's going to have to be a lot of conversations happening as to how to